Yes, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Today, although we're on a virtual platform, it's important for me that we also have an opportunity to just facilitate discussion. Most of my information will be coming, of course, from the juvenile justice standpoint, but we can flush that out as much as we can because a lot of our juveniles that we deal with also are a part of the adult system. And we'll talk about that here shortly. So I'm excited about being here to have an opportunity to discuss with you, facilitate discussion and conversation. I always expect when I'm facilitating discussion that I learn just as much as I hope to give nuggets too, that I'm earning those nuggets as well. So I know we have great professionals on here that's going to be able to provide those nuggets that we can all share with each other. So I look forward to those discussions as well. I'm using these slides as discussion pieces. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice and how that flows and who we deal with. We're focusing in on the African-American males and youth at our facilities today. And so we'll take you through the process of how the kids come to us, and some of them who are awarded over to Department of Corrections on their 17th birthday. So just want to do an energy check, and everybody just put a smiley face in the chat box for me as we're moving forward. Because we're going to create a culture here that we have positive energy, that everybody's going to come in and share their thoughts in the most healthy and respectful way. And I always like good energy. Good energy helps us move forward in what we're trying to do. So if you can indulge me for just a minute with that as we move forward. I just want to find out who can find the mistake. Who sees the mistake? Raise your hand for me. Anybody? All these brilliant minds. I'm just looking for a hand raise. Can someone find the mistake?
There is no mistake.
Who said that?
No, I'm joking. The question mark, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. See.
The word the is there twice.
Absolutely. Can you find the mistake? But I'm almost certain, almost for sure, that everyone went to the numbers because of the color scheme there to try to find if the sequence was well or not. So my whole goal with this and always doing this is what we have to be very cognizant of the details when we're dealing with people. They can show you things that are right up front, and we'll look over that because our thought process is that it's something else, and it's right there in our face. Because our mind tells us, we don't read every word when we read, right? It's normally that first word, last word, and we get it. But how often do we miss pertinent information when we're dealing with clientele and people because we overlook those small details? So our objective today, a lot of words here, but again, I want a discussion from this group of thought. Think tank is what I want to call you. Justice-involved youth provide a unique opportunity to explore the needs of families today because all of them are different. The efforts to locate the appropriate resources and wraparound services are critical to the success of the youth who were termed out with DJJ, the Department of Juvenile Justice, or be warded over to DOC, which is the Department of Corrections, of the adult system. Understanding the critical mental health needs are imperative to rehabilitation in youth and adults returning home as productive and law-abiding citizens. That's part of our DJJ mission statement when you look at it. We deal with youth who can go upwards to 21. I'm not sure where everybody is from here. I know Pilar asked that question in the chat box. But again, I want to ask a question right here real quickly. What is the age of adulthood for the state of Georgia? Anybody knows? When are you considered an adult in the state of Georgia?
We have a lot of 18.
18 is absolutely. 18 is the new age, but That law has not yet been so passed, so to speak, but we've been working on it. 17 is considered the age of adulthood in the state of Georgia. We'll talk about here in a minute where we can have kids as young as the age of 13 who can be charged as an adult in the state of Georgia. And what you'll see when we go through this process is that we can have a child in our facilities right now at the age of 21 who's still considered a child in the state of Georgia because they were committed to us prior to their 17th birthday, and they possibly had a 5-year commitment. So a kid can be committed at 16, have a 5-year commitment. He wouldn't leave us until 21. And then there are sometimes a kid can be committed to us at 16, and at 17, he's warded over to the Department of Corrections based on the charge. So 18 is what we've been working towards, and 18 is going to be the age pretty soon that we will be hitting on. But 17 right now is considered the age of adulthood here in the state of Georgia. So we're going to understand the Georgia's juvenile justice flow. We'll explain the SB 440, that Senate Bill 440 charges. Those charges, if a child receives that, can have them as charged as an adult. Committed versus probated youth in the state of Georgia. Some exploration of the restorative justice piece that we have here, the mental health needs for our justice-involved youth, and then we'll start looking at some strategies that we can help flush out and perhaps have some thoughts with and some conversation about that. So the age of adolescence, we've all been through it. Here's another question for you. Adolescence, we oftentimes think about children. Do you realize what age can adolescence go up to? And look at the definition. Adolescence is a crucial period with marked physical, emotional, and intellectual changes, as well as changes in social roles, relationships, and expectations. And all of these are important for the development of the individual and provide the foundation for adulthood. Establishing healthy behavior is a vital part of this foundation. You have all been through it. David, that's pretty good. 25. We're looking now that adolescence can go upwards to 27. Just think about that. When we thought adolescence was for children 13, 14, 15, and that can go upwards to 27, not 47, I told about 27 years old. There it is. Juliana, you are on it. The brain development takes longer in certain people. And think about this, and we'll talk about it a little later. Allow there to be some type of trauma involved in that, and you'll see how the delays are there. And oftentimes why people, adults and children have high recidivism rates because they're not able to properly process if they're wrong and what those traumas have been in their lives, and we'll get to that. Adolescents are not just teenagers. Adolescents and young adults include 10 to 24-year-olds in 3 development stages. Early adolescence, that 10 to 14 years of age. Middle adolescence, that 15 to 17 years of age. So think about what we said. Adulthood in Georgia is 17, but still can be in an adolescent stage with these youth. And even above that, those who are in our Department of Corrections can still be in the adolescent stage of things. Then later adolescence and young adulthood, 18 to 24 years of age, but upwards to 27. So in 2013, there was the Georgia Juvenile Justice Reform, where all of this took place, where we were going to start making sure that we interact with our youth more so in their own environment. That means the community, rather than lock them up. When I first started with the Department of Juvenile Justice in 2007, a parent could literally put in a charge on a kid for not taking out the trash, for failing to come in on curfew. And judges would literally commit a youth to our department for 2 years for those things. Those are unruly charges. Imagine a child being committed to the Department of Juvenile Justice for disobeying household rules and getting involved into our system, coming to one of our facilities in the state of Georgia. And in my mind, honing and sharpening their skills around those kids who have much greater crimes than curfew and not taking out the trash and not wanting to listen to mom. The juvenile justice reform in 2013 changed that a lot. And what it did is it minimized the number of beds we had in our facilities where we would keep our kids, and how we would focus in and making sure that our youth were taken care of in the community, in their home environment. Now, we do know that some of those kids, their home environment was probably the worst place for them to be. And when I was a probation officer, I fought for a lot of our youth not to go back home. Family unity is awesome, but a lot of those kids, their main concern and problem was their home. And I would go so far to say, was their mom or their dad or their grandma or their uncle or an older brother or sister. But the juvenile justice reform kind of put us in a smaller box where our options were very, very few because we didn't want to send them to the detention facilities. And this is going to sound kind of awkward and maybe not, because we have professionals here. Sometimes the facilities were the best place for some of these kids. They were getting their education, they were getting clothing, they were getting the food, where at home, it was survival of the fittest for them. And I was one of those probation officers where I fought for those kids not to go back home. But the juvenile justice reform, it was meant for us to minimize the number of kids that went to our secured facility and that we handled in-house or in their communities. And this is what it was. And I want to read this because I want you to know where we are now and where we started. It was to reduce over-reliance on youth incarceration. Alternative to incarceration programs must be supported by youth justice systems that heed adolescent development research, make timely and evidence-informed decisions about how delinquency cases are handled, and institutionalize youth only as a last resort when they pose an immediate threat to public safety. In addition, systems must make concerted, determined efforts to reduce the long-standing biases which have perpetuated American youth justice system, glaring racial and ethnic disparities in confinement. That's the goal of the 2013 reform. And I want to give you a little history, and I'm sure all of you know this. There was no juvenile justice for many, many years. Adults and juveniles were treated the same way back in the day, and until that the juvenile justice system became part, because again, our adolescence mindset, the brain development, those kids could not be in the same place as adults. Now, understanding some of the crimes may have been the same, but the mental state, again, the brain development, the adolescence of the kids, it was not there for those young men and women to be confined with those adults who had really heinous crimes. And we have youth in our facilities now in the state of Georgia who have committed some heinous crimes, but we dare not send them over to the adult system. However, they will be going to the adult system, and a lot of them will be going as soon as they turn 17. So DJJ, as we focus in on DJJ, the mission of the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice to transform young lives by providing, look at the words, I know y'all like this word, evidence-based rehabilitative treatment services and supervision. There's nothing we do in this department that's not evidence-based. We are big on being evidence-based in what we do and how we're handling our youth. And we have several different programmings with the Department of Juvenile Justice that help with that. Again, we have youth from all walks of life. We have youth that are coming from other states that commit crimes here. They come on vacation, they commit crimes here, they're here. And we have to deal with them here. And they may not have family members here, but they are here. So The last part of that is strengthening the well-being of youth and families and fostering safe communities. We have to put families in there, right? Because that's where they're going back to. The families have to have buy-in as well. I think I reached a peak here with the Department of Juvenile Justice when we started having youth on our caseload whose parents were on the same caseload. And it becomes a recurring thing. And or think about this one as well. A mother who smoked crack cocaine with her child for the entire 9 months that she was pregnant with him. She was clean, but the damage was done, and this child was now on our caseload. And it just brought a whole new way of how we had to treat this young man. It really became a psychological thing where all hands on deck with this young man. She was hurting for the fact that she did it while she was pregnant with him. Now she's clean and trying her best to handle him. And he was kind of out of control, and he had to come with us. So much so that he's now with DOC, one of those cases where we tried, and he committed a crime where now he's with DOC. Here are our priorities with the Department of Juvenile Justice. It is our goal to operate safe and secure facilities in communities. Prior to my coming to the Department of Juvenile Justice in 2007, the Department of Justice was here, and they had to come in because the numbers of kids that we had in our facilities. I'm now at Atlanta YDC, which is one of our newest facilities in Metro Atlanta. But Metro Regional Youth Detention Center, which is on Constitutional Road for those who are in Atlanta, is our largest facility that can house upwards to 300 to 400 kids and more. Eastman is in Eastman, Georgia, which is YDC. So let me give you some acronyms here. RYDC that you'll see later in the presentation is a Regional Youth Detention Center. And if you correlate that with the adult system, the RYDC, the Regional Youth Detention Center, is likened to an adult jail. Okay, so it's short term, so to speak. Then we have our youth development campuses, which is the YDC, which is likened to a prison because it's more long term. And we can have kids in our YDC, the more long-term facilities, upward to 5 years before they're released, and or we ward them over to the Department of Corrections, the adult system. So it's important for us that we operate safe and secure facilities and communities, because the kids, once they leave the youth detention center or the RYDC, they will still be on a caseload with the probation officers, which we will house them in our community office throughout the state of Georgia. Number two, our second priority is to provide a robust continuum of evidence-based behavioral health programs and services delivered to DJJ youth in the facilities and in the community. So it's our goal to make sure that we take care of them while they're incarcerated, and we also take care of them once they are released. Not all of our youth that come to us go to a YDC. That may be their first stop, but it's short term, RYDC, it's short term, and they're back into the facility. That's when we come in, when I show you, when we get to the slide of how our process works with these young men and women, if they go home or if they're involved in one of our facilities. Gang prevention and intervention. Let's be clear. Let's be crystal clear. It's getting worse, right? It is definitely getting worse. Good question here for you. Juvenile justice. What do you think are the most dangerous gangs we deal with in juvenile justice? I'll take hands, or someone can come off and.
Well, I've from just my experience of dealing with some juveniles that have gotten wrapped up into the system, I think based on how the system is set up, they're never seen as a child. They're always seen as an adult. In mental health, we're more likely to diagnose them with oppositional defiant or conduct disorders, as opposed to looking further into why they are reacting a certain way. And so I don't think that they are ever seen as a child. So so that's why I say that when they encounter the police, then it's almost like it's very adversarial because of the systemic racism and all that that's involved in that.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. Street gangs. Who was that? Who said that? Let me go back up. I see something there. Who's the name? Taurus Brown. Taurus, you're close to what I'm looking for. Street gangs. Give me a little bit more, Taurus, if you're able to.
Street gangs, I kind of equate that to more like neighborhood street blocks and things of that nature, where you have a territory where these group of individuals start street gangs in their neighborhood, or street gangs may turn into just everyday robbing, stealing, even sometimes selling drugs.
Absolutely. Taurus, you are spot on. And what I'm about to help you with now is a name to that, right? So the most dangerous gangs that we deal with in juvenile justice, Taurus just gave a great description to it. The name of that is hybrid, HYBRID, hybrid gangs. And just as Taurus stated, those young men or women will take the name from their street, add some colors. They will possibly take information from different gangs to put together to make their gang knowledge. But what makes them the most dangerous? Taurus did a great job explaining who they are, but what makes them the most dangerous?
I would say just simply the lack of respect for authority, for police officers, just right out violence, open violence.
I knew y'all knew this stuff. Absolutely. They have to make a name for themselves. So they'll do whatever they need to do to make a name for themselves. And because we don't know them, they focus in and they target law enforcement officers, right? Most times. So those young men and women who take their street name, we had one here in Atlanta when I was a probation officer that was on Simpson Road, and they called themselves Simpset. And they made a name for themselves throughout these streets of Atlanta, Georgia. So be mindful when you think it's the Crips, Bloods, folk. No, it's hybrid gangs who are the most dangerous gangs. And we have those inside our facilities, not just in Georgia. It's happened across these United States of America, that initiations are happening. Here a few years ago, pictures became available through the news outlet of our young men being jumped into a gang. And of course, throughout this United States, contraband gets into facilities, phones and things of that nature, and they were able to take pictures and post them on Instagram, or actually it was Facebook at the time, and it made the news. So we have a dedicated gang unit here for the Department of Juvenile Justice to focus in on those things. Our fourth priority is the effective response for human trafficking victims and families. It's a big thing. If you've flown into Atlanta, you can hear our mayor all across the intercom system talking about if you see something or suspect something, because human trafficking is real. Our first lady here in the state of Georgia has just turned one of our old facilities in Gwinnett County. It used to be the Gwinnett Regional Youth Detention Center. She's turned that into a human trafficking safe haven for those who are being involved in that, because that's one of her priorities here. And we have a victim and volunteer services unit with the Department of Juvenile Justice, where we focus in on human trafficking, the victims and families as well. We are really big on that. And the next priority for us is recruitment, of course, retention and succession planning. We're trying to keep good staff members here. And then we're trying to elevate those staff who have shown themselves approved to be in new roles and higher roles to help us make sure that we hit our mission. That's our focus. I want to stop real quickly to see if there's any questions, because I'm doing a lot of talking. I appreciate the interaction today. Are there any questions so far?
We
Any
do have
questions?
one
Yes,
question.
yeah, may I, I'm so sorry. Everybody spoke at once.
Arjun, you can go ahead.
Thank you. You know, I was astounded by you mentioning the human trafficking issue. And I'm so happy that you mentioned it because we're here in Maryland. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. And it got so tremendous for us that we actually ran out of resources to manage it. So thank you for your courage to even bring that to the table.
Absolutely. And when we say we run out of resources, that's scary to me because the resources are lost, but the human trafficking is amping up. And you have to have a focused area, focused group to assure that there is some resources put there. So I hope people are fighting for you in Maryland. Actually, I'll be there next weekend in Maryland for fraternity business, but I'll be in Maryland. But it's a big thing for us, and our state has really, really focused in. How many of you flown through Hartsfield-Jackson and heard the announcement? If you see something, point it out. Go to the local person, because the airport is the haven for the human trafficking. You focus in on your airports. That's where it's happening at. So thank you for that. Was there any other thoughts or questions?
Yes, one more question.
Okay.
The question was, does the state of Georgia offer host sites for those who are going home would not be conducive for positive change?
So, one more time, Pilar. I missed a piece of it.
Yes, so does the state of Georgia offer host sites for those who going home would not be conducive for positive change?
Oh, 100%. So even we call it alternative to placement, right? So we do know that our kids, some of them, this is a sad piece for me, but it's a factual piece. Some kids come to our facilities and they stay for a while, and their parents move, and we don't know where they are, right? So we have to find placement for those kids that's going to help them until we can get them into a more sustained or long-term placement. When we know that DFACS is involved, DFACS is Department of Family and Children Services here in Georgia, is involved in that. And DFACS plays a role, particularly if they have custody. Those kids won't go back to their placement. As a probation officer, I have gone into a house where there is marijuana all over the coffee table, right? And it's just a pop-up visit. And the kids in there smoking with mom and stepdad. As a mandated reporter, I had to let DFACS know, and I truly fought for that child not to go back home. So we do have placement options for those kids. We have a whole unit dedicated to approving group homes that we use, that we can send our kids to, but we always have to think those are short term, right? Until we can move into a more long-term placement. Some kids, we have to move from one placement to another because of the contract we have with those group homes and things of that nature. So yes, the short answer is yes, we do have placement for those kids who we understand that home is not the appropriate place for them. I hope I was able to answer that question. All right, let's see here. We're chugging right along. Appreciate you. So here's our population. I'm just going to let you see that. We've 10,443 youth. 84% of those youth are in the community, at home and under supervision. We have 315 youth, which is 3% in the community non-secured residential placements. That's our group homes. So look how many kids we have in group homes and places of that, 315 of them. So those are those kids we don't send home, right? Or we feel that a little more time away from the house with this group home who has to have programs involved. These kids still have to go to school if they're of school age. We have 258 youth, that's 2% of them, in adult jails. We as juvenile probation officers have to go to the jail and see those kids, right? Perhaps their charge that they had, they could go to jail, right? So, or the kids are on our caseload, they've turned 17, they've committed another charge, they're not coming back to our juvenile facility because at 17, you're considered an adult in Georgia. So you go to jail. You don't come to a regional youth detention center. However, you are already on a caseload, which means we still have the obligation as probation officers to go see that kid. And oftentimes, look, we have 258 youth in jail right now. 898 youth are in our regional youth detention center. Remember, regional youth detention center is comparative to an adult jail, so it's short term. And we have 405 youth in our youth development campuses, long term, almost like prison, for on the juvenile side, 4%. That's just how our population looks right now. So if we want to think about it, we don't have to go through the whole process, but this is how those kids come to be involved with us. There's a juvenile complaint or detention order that's given. A lot of these kids are already on probation sometime in their county, right? We are the state. The county have their own offices. You have those counties who are dependent counties, which means they deal with probation and committed youth, okay? Probation and committed is dependent county. Then we have those independent counties who only deal with committed youth. What do you mean by committed, Mr. Irby? Committed means that the judge has stated you are committed to the Department of Juvenile Justice. And just to give you a little bit of that, when you're committed to the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, the minimum commitment time is 2 years, okay? If a judge states that you are committed, you know that you have 2 years commitment with the Department of Juvenile Justice. And that means that you are moved over to the State Department, where you'll have a state probation officer where we'll have more heightened conditions of probation for you, and definitely put programs in place for you as well. We'll get to this slide a little later. Then we have those SB 440 charges where you can be charged as an adult, even at the age of 13. I tell people, you want to come to Georgia, make sure you're going to keep your nose clean, because Georgia has some of the strictest laws there are, and that includes our juveniles as well. So you can be committed as an SB 440, adult charges, and you can get a 5-year commitment, right? So we can go from 2 year upwards to 5. And what we've started doing is breaking those designated felons. That's what it's called. And you can Class A and Class B. But there it is right there. If you look down at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet point, designated felon commitments, we call them DF, is divided into 2 categories, Class A and Class B. There are different terms in respect to the length of commitment and restricted custody. Class A is our more restrictive, and we'll get to talking about that in a minute. I want to see what you got there. Then there's regular Superior Court sentence of a youth as an adult for a felony. So look at here, DJJ can hold that kid until age 17, and he transfers to Georgia Department of Correction. I mean, happy birthday. We have a present for you. I'm not making light of it, but it's just the facts of it all. Happy birthday. You wake up in the morning and DOC is there ready to take you over to the adult system because you're at the age now. This SB 440 Superior Court sentence the 7 deadly sins. Remember, Senate Bill 440, that's a Georgia law. This youth sentence as adult for certain offenses if age 13 or older. I'll put a pin there. What's your thought on that? A 13-year-old being charged as an adult. I just feel like we got some good conversations coming from that. Anybody?
Well, I know on our end, we see a tremendous amount of trauma exposures and untreated trauma exposures definitely have a relationship between the trauma exposures, the severity of it, and then children acting out. We rarely see that level of mental illness at 13, but we see a lot of trauma exposures for which we do see acting out behavior that could include things that could be considered a felony if the person was of age.
Absolutely, sir. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Your thoughts? I see too young. 13 is entirely. Help me, Pilar, because they popping them in there now. That was good.
Taylor Adams said 13 is entirely too young. Your brain is nowhere near fully developed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My
Jenny,
thoughts. Go ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead, Pilar.
we have a lot of commentary now. Jenny Howard said strictest laws plus disproportionate sentencing for marginalized communities. And to Regina's point, seeing these children as adults, ... Sasha Ford said that is way too young, especially when the mind isn't fully developed until age 25. And then
Hey, Sasha.
And then Juliana said, that is sad. What is the evidence-based reason for that? 13 needs assistance, not thrown in jail.
So Juliana, excellent question. This is going to sound like a cop-out of an answer, but it's the facts. It's all about the Georgia lawmakers who put that in place, right? And I'm almost certain there's no evidence-based. There's nothing evidence-based to me that says that a 13-year-old can be charged as an adult. Before this designated felon came in, when I started with the department, we had an 11-year-old. He was in our facility, okay? He had shot and killed his stepmother. But because this law of designated felon and SB 440 was not in play in the state of Georgia, he stayed the entire 10 years with the Department of Juvenile Justice. And at the age of 21, we released him. Think about that. He came to us at 11. He spent 10 years with us until he was 21 and he was released back into society because he could not be charged as an adult at the time. Why? Because he was not of age. He was 11 years old, but he was a part of one of our facilities. So there's no evidence based in my mind if there are, and actually that's a good question for me to research myself because I never thought about that. So yeah, I like that. Thank y'all for giving me some homework too. That's good. I don't know if there's any evidence based there. So being charged as an adult in Georgia, we've been talking about this law granted adult courts exclusive jurisdiction over criminal cases involving juveniles ages 13 through 17 who are charged with one or more of the aforementioned crimes. I'm about to talk about those. In essence, juveniles charged with one of the mentioned crimes will automatically have his or her case transferred from juvenile court to superior court. There's 7. Here they are: murder, armed robbery with a firearm, rape, voluntary manslaughter, aggravated sodomy, aggravated sexual battery, aggravated child molestation. There's one that recently came on a couple of years ago. Smash and grab is one of those ones that they look at as an SB 440 charge. That's with a car. It really started when these smartphones started. And what we had is young men going up into Buckhead and those areas and pushing women down, grabbing their phones from them. And the judges were not having it, and they were not happy with it. And they start charging them with smash and grab. In Atlanta, a few years ago, we had this summer of ravished, they call themselves the Blue Jean Bandits in Metro Atlanta, where they would go in and steal these high-end jeans from these stores up in other areas. And the judges were not having it. And they started charging these young men and women, young ladies, with SB 440. So smash and grab is one as well. We are seeing more young men and women coming through our doors with murder charges than we've seen in a long time, right? There is nothing worse than seeing a 14-year-old child charged with more years than they have been on this earth, falling down, calling for their mother. Yeah, That just hits different just reading the way you say that. Imagine on our campus at Georgia Public Safety Center in Forsyth, we have a facility down there, a prison. They have a whole section dedicated to juveniles. And I used to run coordinator of the probation officers course. And what we went over, I took the class to visit these juveniles and to meet a 16-year-old, first time being charged, and he had a 25-year sentence. He has to do 10 of those years, and then 15 of those would be on parole, which essentially means he can't breathe hard, right? 16 years old. Can I add to this also? His first charge, but he chose the wrong county to get his charge in. And for lack of a better term, they threw the book at him, right? 16 years old, 25 years, 10 he had to do. And look at the flow. We've kind of talked about it, but it's just broken down in this graph, right? Whatever the offense occurs, you can put the offense in there, that murder charge or rape charge. It's going to go through the juvenile court process, but they are going to be warded over to Superior Court for the adult system. And then we'll decide if they'll go to Superior Court, or do we wait for them reach their 17th birthday. There's those times, that at age 21, that they also, they'll wait before they send them to Department of Correction. But if a young man or a young woman is committed or charged with an SB 440 charge, one of those 7 deadlies, they will be charged as an adult. So you've given me your thoughts. What are your thoughts, though? What just hearing those small pieces? We may skip through some of these slides. I have a lot of slides because I thought I had a little more time, but we may not get through all. What are your thoughts so far?
A lot of these issues come from, in my opinion, mental illness and the breakdown in the family unit. There's no longer those programs. I know when I was in school, there was a program called Scared Straight, and I can remember, I'm in my 40s. Going to the morgue, going to the prison, having prisoners come to the school and talk to us what it's like. I remember to this day, but there was a 17-year-old boy that got triple life, and pretty much, and he never fought for triple homicide for just being in the car. And they said that he didn't tell in time. So the hand of one is the hand of all. And so to this day, I still remember that he just, even as the people he was with said he didn't pull the trigger, but still he spent the rest of his life in jail. He is spending the rest of his life in jail.
Absolutely.
For being in the wrong place at the right time, and just hearing him say, I would never go to my prom. I would never get married. I would never have children. I didn't see my grandma died, and to be considered an OG at 26 or 27 when he came to talk to us.
Understood. Sad. The sad reality, I'll just say that, of it all. So good people, thank y'all. If y'all see me running through slides, that's because my time is winding down. I found this, the Public Health Capstone Project from Georgia State. It's the association between mental illness and incarceration among the African-American Black population in the United States. I just want to read this. The trauma that Black people endure with the criminal justice system and law enforcement, such as fearing the police and police brutality, the fear of being arrested and incarcerated. Incarceration can also cause, you just got through talking about it, mental illness effects, which then puts a toll on one's mental health. Mental illness due to incarceration affects reentry, which then creates a cycle of incarceration due to untreated mental illness. So it starts going down that rabbit hole of trying to figure things out. Georgia has a high prevalence of mental illness at 33.90% and a high incarceration rate at 32,243 among Blacks, compared to the national average for mental illness prevalence, 18.29%, and federal imprisonment rate at 67,818. The high prevalence rates for both mental illness and incarceration indicates there are barriers to access to services, I'm sure you'll agree, in care, which can play a role in people getting incarcerated due to their mental illness. So what is that saying? They can't get the services that they need Those lack of services lead them to being incarcerated because they can't get those services. Mental illness has an impact on individuals' physical and emotional well-being, and it also has economic effects due to higher healthcare costs from the physical conditions compared to those who do not have a mental illness. This capstone study was done in 2020. Based on the State of Mental Health in America report, Georgia ranked 47 for access. Y'all read that? Like I read that? To care, ranked 40 for adults with mental illness and access to care, and 22 for children with mental illness and access to care. Georgia has various community service boards that provide mental health services. There are a few crisis centers that offer inpatient services along with private and state psychiatric hospitals. Utilizing integrated healthcare could be a solution to the health. However, there is a shortage of primary care physicians along with behavioral health providers. So we have high mental health loads, but not enough resources to address those. And I'm sure not just in Georgia, other states are seeing the same thing over and over again. And if we had more time, we'll start fleshing out what do you do? It's all about legislation, and I hate that politics plays a role, but we have to be honest, politics plays a role in what's being funded and what's not being funded. In 2017, the Department of Correction identified that around 10,000 of the inmates in Georgia were on level 2 or above for mental health, which cost the state over $1 billion. So when you say cost the state, that's when the politics starts coming in, right? To provide care for inmates. And individuals in county jails consume millions of dollars for psychiatric drugs and transportation for mental health related needs. Georgia is one of the states that are in the epicenter of the opioid crisis, with it being one of the top states that are dealing with opioid related deaths due to this crisis. Money has been allocated to create more opioid treatment centers to help mitigate the problem. I found this capstone study when pulling this presentation together, and it was eye-opening for me. Energy check, I think we already got it. You don't have to put a smiley face, just show me a smile and then we'll move on, all right? So we understand that life does throw curve balls to us, and these kids that we deal with, these adults that we deal with. I'll be shifting through several of these slides quickly, but I will provide these to you. I'll give it to Pilar and she can get it to you. What do you see, real quickly? What do you see?
Just black squares.
Yeah, I see those too. Anybody else?
I see bars.
I see bars. Does anybody see the dots between the black boxes? Hand raised, let me see, because everybody's not going to be able to see it. I think it's easier for me. Who does not see the dots between the black boxes? I see people moving their heads and trying to reposition their head. Who does not? That's going to help me out. I don't see them. I see the black dots. I don't see them. Good. When I looked away and then looked back, they're faint. Good answers. Because everybody's perception is different, right? If I were to ask you, if we had time, what did you think of me when I came on? What did you see? You wouldn't dare tell me that you see a young man who's the product of a 14-year-old mom, who's not the oldest, who's 17 years old, and who could have possibly been one of these kids that he's worked with all these years if things were not put in place. Although she was a young mother, she didn't play the radio. Rules were rules, and the values of the house were the values, right? So I don't allow these young men to tell me that their situations, yeah, their situations can be bad, but you have to find your way out of that. It's all about perception and what we see, okay, and what it is. And we all perceive based on our value system, yes, how we were raised, what our values were, and things of that nature. So I like to throw this slide in there, and I wish we were in person so we could have some further discussions on that. I'm sliding through. I'm trying to get to. What if I told you you read the first line wrong? Same with the second and also the third. Y'all trying to figure it out? What I if told you, you thee read first line wrong, saying thee was second, and also the third. Again, for me, this piece lets me know we have to be very cautious and very particular of what we are looking at when we're dealing with people. We can't miss the fine print that's right there in our face that can help us get to a successful end with our clientele. So don't just read that first word and last word and then you'll be able to tell the story. You have to make sure that every piece that you see is important. And here it is. We have our visible traits and we have our invisible traits because it's hiding in plain sight. We can dress up to make ourselves look good, but what's really inside that's causing us to thrive? Do you know people go to work every day with mental health issues, depressions, and things that nature? Also suicidal ideation, but they look really good and they're happy-go-lucky and they're probably helping out more so than any other person. But then we also have to take into consideration what those invisible traits are. Our value system, our upbringing, our socioeconomic status, what's going on in our home and things of that nature. So you have to look beyond the surface when we're dealing with our clientele. I'm speeding fast because fast is what we got to speed, right? Most of our kids and people we deal with, have you ever been so mad you couldn't think straight? Just shake your head. I want that to come from everybody. Yeah. You have to walk away, right? Imagine these kids, again, who are in an adolescent stage and their brain hasn't fully developed. They're going to stay stuck in that high zone. Particularly if they feel like they have their back is against the wall and they have to come out the corner. Anybody ever seen a cat really mad and backed up in a corner? A cat is coming out of that corner one way or the other. And these kids don't know how to function and process that information. I love it, Rollins, tip of the iceberg, absolutely. So we already know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know because you're the experts here, but we're talking mental illness and juvenile justice. Adolescence is a time of intense brain development we've talked about. Adolescence can be a time of intense social stress, particularly if they're not able to get the latest Jordans or whatever those shoes are now, the latest clothes, and they have to go to school in those. I was that kid that couldn't do that. But the good thing is I had high self-esteem, although we lacked in resources and things of that nature. I was really popular to be one of the poorest kids in school, right? And my mom always taught us, no one is better than you. We have kids now that they don't get that reassurance. They don't get that injection of empowerment that causes them to act out. Most kids we recognize that came to us on my caseload as a probation officer, particularly if they were removed from school, is because they couldn't read and they were being asked to read out loud. So they will act out and really act out just to get out of the class so they wouldn't have to deal with that. And the school would miss that piece of it, right? Let's focus in on the lack that's happening, not that it's disrespectful. A lot of times these young men and women who are cursing you out and sometimes adults, it's really not about you. You just happen to be the person in front right there that they're trying to vent to, right? Half of all mental illness begins by age 14. 3/4 of all mental illness begins by the mid-20s. As many as 70% of juvenile justice involved youth have a diagnosable mental illness. Let's look at some of this. And when we talk about trauma, it happens and it's really prevalent. The experience of a real or perceived threat to life or bodily integrity, or the life or bodily integrity of a loved one, and causes an overwhelming sense of terror, horror, helplessness, and fear. I'm going to run through this because I'm not teaching you anything you know, because you know this. What is trauma? Trauma is too much too soon, yeah, and too little for too long. Just think about those things and think about, again, going back to the adolescent stage and being able to process that and the brain development and things of that nature. And the factors that included in that trauma is our social experience, where we grew up, what our household is made of, what the family dynamic is, what our socioeconomic status is. How traumatic can those things be? I'm sure you've heard of the term parentified child. That means the child is the head of the household, while the parents are out. They're having to take care of the household. A young man I remember having $4,000 on his person because he's selling drugs. The mom never called to check on the kid. She only wanted to know where the money was. When are y'all going to release the money? Not where her child is. But he was taking care of all the bills in the house. That's a parentified child, right? Let's move a little bit closer. Potentially traumatic events, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, community violence and victimization, abandonment and neglect, domestic violence, traumatic loss. Here we are, prostitution, sex trafficking. Here we are again, serious accident, medical trauma, injury, illness, or natural disaster. I remember I was working with the department when Katrina happened in New Orleans, and those young men and women had to come to Georgia, right? And if they were already on caseload in Louisiana, they came to our caseload. And a lot of them came here without anything because they lost everything. So what did you think they did? They started being involved in crime to get things for their household. But look at this, the mental health stigma with African Americans. Although beliefs and attitudes vary, research shows that many Black adults, especially older adults, view mental health conditions as a consequence of personal weakness. As a result, people may experience shame about having a mental illness and worry that they may be discriminated against due to their condition. So here's DJJ and our mental health programming and what it looks like. Includes screening, assessment, and treatment of youth placed with DJJ facilities. Look here, within 2 hours of admission to DJJ facility, each youth is screened for mental health issues, traumatic experiences, substance use, and suicide, self-harm risk. Approximately 50% of youth are then referred for a more thorough mental health assessment by a qualified mental health professional. The goal is to identify any at-risk youth as early as possible and then to provide care to meet their basic mental health needs. This goal is accomplished through services provided to youth by a treatment team that includes mastered level mental health clinicians, psychologists, and psychiatrists. Those psychologists and psychiatrists came as a result when the Department of Justice came in and said that we have to have those people placed in every facility that we have here in the state of Georgia for the Department of Juvenile Justice. And there are some of the things that we do here: trauma effect regulation, collaborative assessment and management of suicidalities. This approach integrates a range of theoretical operations. And then we have New Freedom. New Freedom is one of those newer ones that we have that you can research and look at. That's what we use here at the Department of Juvenile Justice. We have our whole behavioral health unit that we work with. I want to go through this because we've already talked about it a bit. We've talked about that. You'll get these slides as well. It's just small. Look at this, and then I'll move out of the way, Pilar. Males on the mental health caseload. We have 59% of those that's on our caseload. 58% of the young ladies that are on our mental health caseload. I do want to show you this. Look at the types of disorder by gender: disruptive disorder, substance disorder, neurodevelopmental disorders, parent-child relationship problems, depressive disorders, trauma and stress disorder, and sleep-wake disorder. We look at those for the Department of Juvenile Justice of how that is split off male and female. And then, of course, there's co-occurrence. There's one thing going on, but there's several things going on with a lot of these kids that causes us to really have to hone in and work with them a lot. All right, Pilar, I'm running out of here. Trust me. I can't go through all this, all. Barriers to change, language barriers, negative condition about other groups, stereotypes, lack of motivation to change, lack of knowledge, and fear of change. So what we try to teach our kids and our staff alike is to do the STAR method. They stop, think, analyze what the situation is. Your response after you analyze, is it necessary? Okay, that's kind of things that we look at right now. And with any child or anybody that's been in juvenile justice or been involved with the justice system, it's all about trust. And trust is like a paper. Once it's crumbled, it can't be perfect. So you have to make sure that your trust you hold it in high regard, and that you really don't allow anyone or allow your trust to be questioned with your clientele. And so some strategies that we always think about is being aware, education, being open-minded, eliminating stereotypes. And if you're going to be in this arena, you need to show some compassion to our clientele. And I was adding this because 100 Black Men here in Atlanta have a whole resource that's dedicated to mental health that you can, they're putting some agencies out here that helps with that as well. The Mental Health of America here in Georgia gives great information and resources as well to African Americans here in the Georgia area. Your smile is your logo. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after an experience with you, that becomes your trademark. Subject matter experts, we appreciate you. I thank you. I hate I didn't have time. I made some good slides for y'all, but Pilar said the time is running out, right? Here's some of my contact information. What I'm going to do is give you this QR code that has all of my information. I would love to communicate and collaborate with you.
Thank you, Mr. Irby. We definitely, on behalf of the center here, we thank you for coming and presenting today. We did have a few questions, and I'll now open up the floor for the last 10 minutes if you all want to come off of mute and ask questions. But we'll first start with the three questions that we had in the chat. So the first question is, should there be more behavioral analysis, BCBAs working in the juvenile system in connection with determining transitions back into the community?
The short answer is absolutely yes. We feel like we have a robust behavioral health plan for our students, but we're always looking for more evidence-based things that happens. We always have different agencies, different programs coming in to introduce new ideas and ways for us to better work with our youth. But we not only focus on our youth, we always also focus on the families. But while the youth are with us and incarcerated, they have a robust mental health schedules. That's why we've upped the pay in our mental health professionals. That's why we've upped the degree, master level. And now we're really looking for licensed personnel as well, because we really know that that's a big piece there.
The second question is, does mental illness diagnosis reduce correctional time?
Unfortunately, this is going to sound, that's from a judge to judge type of thing, right? The judge kind of decides where that is. I mean, the crime, as it relates to the mental illness and who the judge is, I tell you, depending on the county here in Georgia, they're going to lay the hammer on you. And there are some judges, particularly in juvenile justice, we know those judges. So unfortunately, it does not reduce the time, but we try to get the help that's needed once they're there.
And then to the other part to that question is, or does it increase because of potential outbursts from not knowing how to regulate?
There you go. So Jenny Howard, you answered your question. That is definitely it. Because to think about what we oftentimes see as kids who are in our facilities now, they still have their outbursts, right? Particularly if they know that they're leaving our regional youth detention center, remember, like a jail, and they're going to transfer over to the adult system. They feel like there's nothing to lose. So they're going to give our staff members everything they want and then some. And then if they perhaps get more charges in the facility, because they can do that, they can get more charges in juvenile facility just like they can in an adult facility. So yes, to that question, it does increase.
What are the strictest counties in Georgia?
Gwinnett. We can go over to Chatham County, which is Savannah. And we have Columbus, which is, now my geography's off. That is, so Columbus, Georgia, those counties, that county over that way.
That would be Muskogee.
Muskogee, thank you. Since there are 4 sexual crimes in SB 440, do you use? No. Good answer. I've not heard of PSB. CBT.
It's problem sexual behavior, CBT. It involves the family and the child and learning sexual development, because sometimes if they miss some of the sexual development in adolescence, they have to be kind of retrained, and instead of criminalizing children as adults, it works with them to make sure that they sexually develop properly.
I like it. Never. We do have certified sex offender counselors on our staff that have to go through extra training to get that. But I don't think I've ever, even when I was in probation, heard that PSB CBT. But I will look that up. Thank you for that.
Do you see with all the interventions that they have, especially focusing more on mental health, have you seen a decrease in the amount of violent crimes?
Absolutely. If they're receptive to it, and again, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, they have to have the support system as well, right? We can give them all the resources that they are, but if they don't have the appropriate support system once they leave our, I'm going to say, cocoon of juvenile justice or justice system, and they go back out and they're allowed to do whatever they've been doing, it's not going to help. But with the support system, it definitely helps. And if they stay involved on their scheduled visits when it's their time to be there, and they're really working the process and the plan, it does help quite well.
If there are no other comments or questions, we do have a couple of thank yous in the chat for coming. Again, we do thank you, Mr. Irby, for coming and presenting today. We again ask that you complete the GIPRA evaluation, which I will put the link in the chat. This is a requirement for our funders so that we can continue to have these webinars and trainings.